see to the right who's on there. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Great.
And then what will happen is if people submit questions, okay, Golf Smart, Nick, you see, Nick says Golf Smarter was an inspiration for him. When you see questions, if people submit questions, so they type /Q and then type their question for you.
Okay.
I can pop it up on the screen so you can see it as well.
Okay.
So we're just going to let this run. This show is actually, the podcast episode is going to actually run next week. I'm going to take Thanksgiving week off, but I'm going to publish it on December 1st because it's being sponsored by Harry's. And since the promo code doesn't start till December 1st, I'm not even going to put the ad in the in this show today in our conversation. I'll insert it later. Does that work?
Sure.
You don't shave anyway. Why would I want to do a Harry's ad for you?
A little bit here and there.
A little bit. Electric or blade?
Pardon?
You use electric or a blade?
A combination. So, yeah.
Combination. Where do you start? With the blade or you start with the electric?
With the blade.
You do.
And then clean up with the electric. So, yeah.
And you find you get closer with an electric?
Certain parts, yes.
Wow. Okay. I'm not even going to start talking about the parts.
Trim the furry part with the electric.
Oh, of course. Yeah, you got to do that. Wow, Nick. Yes, 2006. Episode 1 of Golf Smarter, Nick was there.
Really?
Nice. Joe Parent was our first guest. And we were coming up to a 10-year anniversary on episode number 520, obviously, if you're doing it weekly. Yeah. All right, let's get this thing going. Welcome to the Golf Smarter podcast, John.
Thank you.
It is so nice to have you on. You are a local celebrity. Now, I know we're on a global scale right here, but in the San Francisco area, you are a golf celebrity.
Well, I've never looked that word up in the dictionary, but I'm sort of avoidant of that word. So,
you are a golf personality in the Bay Area. Is that better?
I'm not sure I like that word either, but I'll play along here for now.
You're a golf instructor in the Bay Area, aren't you?
I do some of that as well, yes.
So how would you, if someone says, so what do you do? Because I don't have an answer for that. I've yet to figure out a good answer for that. What is it that you tell people that you do when someone says, what do you do?
Well, I work in the golf industry. I'm a golf professional, but I have a focus problem. And what I mean by that is I get myself involved in a variety of different situations where I've taught. I've been in golf course management, which I don't currently do. I hold my real estate license. I'm working on a golf course deal right now. For example, I'm on 3 charity boards, and I consult on a couple of golf products. So, and in the midst of that, I claim I'm partly retired, and I'm an avid salmon fisherman and crabber. So, I don't know, maybe eclectic is a better word.
It's a very good word. Well, when you say lack of focus, I know my issue with that is medication.
Sure. I've got a glass of red wine right here off camera. So,
hey, this is not TV. This is not radio. You can say what you want. You can drink what you want. And if you've ever heard any of the other Blab live events, they don't censor these things. So
got it.
Yeah. And it's very hard I come from a radio background as well. And it's very hard to swear on these things. When there's a microphone here, I go, darn.
Well, I think in doing radio for 20 years, my language is cleaned up even when I'm out in public. It's I fortunately have trained myself to not go that direction to get in trouble.
So I'm really fascinated by, you're not talking about being a celebrity or personality, but you have a radio show, you have a television show, and you've been doing them for how long? The radio show, you said 22 years?
Yeah, we're at 22, and we did TV for 15. I still do a little bit of TV. I do some stints on the CBS Channel 5 when the majors are held, and I do an hour show after the Masters and the PGA on Channel 5 here locally. And then I've done some other stuff when the U.S. Open was an Olympic club. I was sort of a pseudo spokesperson for the club, and we did a couple of specials based around history of the Olympic club and the U.S. Open's being played there.
Nice. Tell me about your radio show, or tell everybody about your radio show. And it's hard enough doing a podcast about golf because it's audio, mostly audio. But a radio show, what kind of calls do you get in? It's a call-in show, correct?
Well, we've done some call in, but we're sort of guest based. And,
Oh, okay.
kind of how I look at that is that, a lot of call in situations are, I don't know, somewhat controversial where, you have to have controversy for, really strong interaction. And golf doesn't necessarily have that. So we have at least 2 guests per week, sometimes 3. It's an hour show. And we will have either a golf professional, or we promote local golf courses or events, things that are happening in the world of golf. And then my partner Mitch Juricic and we have a fellow named Tom Spencer that joins us just about every week, and he is Jim Nance's right-hand man for both golf and football. So Tom is sort of our inside track into the PGA Tour, and to really know what's going on, and that type of thing. So he's excellent.
That's very cool. That's really great to get that inside peek every so often.
Yeah, then we try to have a little fun, and this past a recent show was the big game, Cal and Stanford, and we've done this now for 20 years, where we get the golf coaches from both Cal and Stanford, the men and women, and we get them on the show. We get them sort of trash talking about the programs, and we promote their program, hear how their players are doing, and then we get them to predict the score of the game, and we have a little fun with it as well. So and they seem to appreciate the fact that we're helping promote college golf in that way, and we spread it around. We've got some guys that we have on at least once or twice a year from San Jose State, UC Davis, Cal State Sonoma, University of San Francisco, some of the active programs. And so, we try to spread that around.
That's nice. And this year, the big game was just last week, so you must have had them on.
We had them on just recently. I'd forgotten exactly when this was going to air, but it was November 21st, just a couple days ago, as we're taping this.
Okay. And the football game was not really that competitive, unfortunately. I loved how Cal's football season started. And Goff was leading the team. I love the kid. He's phenomenal, but it's tough right now. Stanford is just playing on all cylinders, but the golf programs for Cal and Stanford are pretty competitive, aren't they?
They are. And you'll have ebbs and flows where, Cal men won the national championship a handful of years ago. Stanford was probably ranked in the top 10 or 20 at that point. And Stanford now has a little bit of an advantage over Cal, and then Stanford's women won the NCAA championship last year in June, but Cal now is got some real good players, so they all get along. And the kind of a funny story: the woman coach at Stanford played at Cal and was an assistant coach there, so it's kind of all family.
All family. Look, we all live in the Bay Area. It's fun. I think that Cal gets more love in the Bay Area as far as, the noise, mainly because the student body is so much larger, right?
Yeah, I would guess so. And Stanford's lucky they have their own golf course, and so but Cal has done a great job of bringing the program back from like a club sport. And in the case of the women, and we actually talked about it with Nancy McDaniel, the coach, this weekend, they did not have a program when she was hired 21 years ago. And now they've come to where they're, consistently in the top 20. You got to give her a great pat on the back for doing so.
Well, I raised 2 boys here in the Bay Area and was pumping them nonstop. Cal, work hard. You got to go to Cal. This is a great opportunity. Go, go, go. And both my kids rebelled against me. One went to Stanford and the other one went to USC. So
okay, well,
how do you say no to that, right?
You've got a shirt combination on that could go either way. You've got the Cal and Stanford mixed together. It's rare you see that. So nice going.
Thank you. Well, I do what I can. I root for the Pac-12.
There you
We'll
go.
just keep it at that. Tell me about your TV show. Are you doing it still, or
No,
is
we
not?
have not done the TV show in about 4 years.
Okay.
We had a great run, and our timing
Yeah.
was really excellent in that when we started it around 1994, there was a lot of new golf courses being built in the Bay Area, and they were looking to be promoted, and we had the idea to do the show, and so the timing really worked out perfectly. And then we kind of went through some of the economic downturns and the golf economic downturns, and we got to the 15th year, and we thought, this has been a great run, and let's not press it. And it got harder to get advertisers to support the show,
Right.
and then my partner and I each had a couple of medical situations, and he had his knees done, and I had my hips done, and so it was like, okay, we're kind of fighting an uphill battle here, and so we said, hey, this is a great run, and we met a lot of great people and all that, so it worked out fine.
Well, I'm glad that you're doing okay now, and I'm gonna just completely right turn from everything else I had written down as far as wanting to talk to you about. But I think this is an interesting conversation to talk about. You had you say a hip replacement?
I've had actually 4 surgeries. I had both hips replaced about 5 years ago, and then I did and then I had a product failure, and so I had to have a redo on that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And the plaque behind me up on the wall there, we can't zoom this in.
No.
But the little right above the closet door there, kind of a cute story. I played golf with the doctor that did my surgery, and there was a logo on the ball from the product that went faulty. And I said, what is that? What I think it is? And so I said, let me have that golf ball. And he had done some photos of the surgery for a legal proceeding that was going to happen. So that is a picture of the internal parts of my hip from the surgery with the logoed golf ball in between. And when I took it to get it framed, the people, they said, "What is this?" And I said, "Just do it. Just don't ask too many questions." So there's a little remembrance of my procedures. So
yeah, it's pretty funny. How has your golf been since? And this is the question that I wanted to ask: is after a hip replacement, multiple surgeries, how long did it take you to get back? Have you been able to get back fully?
Yeah, I would say I was back fully, especially where you fully from where fully from when I was 35. No, but the year or so before I had the surgeries, in golfing terms, I was very flat-footed in my swing. I was not able to make lateral movement with weight shift, and so I was sort of like sitting in a chair trying to make a golf swing, and so after that, my progress was great. I was able to walk the golf course. I would carry my bag. That would keep me loose, and I played very, very well. And so that was great. So I'm very happy to get it done. And as I said, I felt younger and more vibrant and certainly more active. So yeah, that was a good thing.
Yeah, that's nice. Any advice for somebody who might be going through some sort of hip replacement or post-surgery and they want to get back to their golf game?
Yeah, it's interesting. I have a good friend that we just spoke over the weekend. He's about to have surgery, and I've sort of mentored a few of my friends, being that I'm sort of a brown belt in hip surgeries at this point. And, I would say, you got to stay active and do the physical therapy, get out and walk as much as you can, stay loose and get in shape even before the surgery, so that you're able to recover more quickly and just stay active and try to stay positive with it. So and the other thing I would say is get it done sooner than later. If you're thinking about it, what happens is that if you're limping or favoring a hip, that it can affect the other hip. It can affect your back, and because the body is sort of a labyrinth and everything works together and like a sort of a finely tuned machine. And if you've got one wobbly wheel over here that's not happening correctly, then the rest of the car isn't going to ride very well. So so get it done sooner than later would be my suggestion.
Well, thank you for that. I have a friend who's got a knee problem, and he just says, I'm just going to keep going as long as I can until I just can't take it anymore. And you're saying not a good idea.
Yeah, and 2 years from now, he's going to be, because of his age, potentially, less able to recover quickly, and just so he can enjoy his life and get on with it. And so I'd say sooner than later.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm. So you played on the PGA Tour.
I did.
When and how long and how'd you do?
Well, I had
three questions at once.
Yeah, well, I played 3 years in the mid 70s, 75, 6, and 7. I came out of college at the age of 21 and went through the tour school when it was, kind of a different setup. There was 2 stages to the tour school, and ironically, to sort of jump ahead a little bit, I went to 3 tour schools, and I made it through 2. And they were probably the best tournaments that I may have ever played. I finished 7th in one and 9th in the other, where they had about 22 to 25 players that earned their card. And then on the tour, I made a number of cuts each year, had some top 25, top 30 finishes. But at the time, I didn't make enough money, is how they categorized it. It was only the top 60 then versus top 125, and I didn't make enough money to keep my card, so I went back to the school and went through that process twice, and then played New Zealand, Australia 1 year, and had a couple of good events there. I had a 3rd place in southern New Zealand, but great experiences, and I was a young guy that didn't have much of what is now the web.com type tour. And that would have been nice to have a place to sort of, learn to travel and kind of learn my game a little bit. But, I was right out there with the big boys right away. And that was a pretty stout learning experience to go right in with the Wolves.
Oh, I would think so. And probably a bit intimidating.
Yeah, there was times it was, and I had some pairings that I was in awe of. And but I think I kind of handled it fairly well, and I had a sponsor and sort of a mentor at the time that was close with Jack Nicklaus and Tom Weiskopf. And when I was in college, I got to play with Weiskopf a couple of times at my home course. So I had some exposure to these guys, and then a lot of the guys I played with in college also went through the tour qualifyings about the same time, and we'd play Monday qualifyings together, and so you kind of felt comfort because you were there with guys about your same age for most of the time, and unless you had a good Thursday, Friday, and made the cut, you were not necessarily paired with the top players on the first couple of rounds. So there was a little bit of a learning curve there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We are recording this live on Blab for those listening to the podcast, and for those watching on Blab, thank you for joining us. Rick, great to see you. Scott, thank you so much for coming in. If anybody has any questions for John, please, you'll see the instruction there, type /Q, and then your question will pop it up, and we'll bring it up on the screen for John to answer, because that if you've been listening, well, I always have a lot of questions, but I want to have you guys play along with us as well. You kind of tossed something in the middle of that. You said that you had some pairings that were awe-inspiring. Let's expand on that just a touch.
Well, one of my favorite stories, and I my friends probably get tired of hearing it, although I don't tell them anymore because they've heard it.
Well, we're all your friends, and we get to hear it now.
Yeah, I'll tell you 2 cute ones. So the Los Angeles Open at Riviera, I get in as an alternate, and the first fairway is it gets very tight. And there's a little creek, and the players have to walk kind of beside this bunker to get up to the green. And I'm in one of the first groups. I'm an alternate, and I'm playing with a fellow named Bob Wynn that was a Northern California player, and Hale Irwin. Wow. Who was not real friendly to play with to a young guy. Let me leave it at that. Wow. I know this is a family show, and you can't.
No, it's not.
Well,
if you want to go on,
I thought he was an ass. So there we go. So I'm walking up the side of the rope, and this guy's kind of looking at the pairing sheet, and he's kind of looking up at me and looking at the pairing sheet, and he says, "You're not Lee Elder." So Lee Elder is who I replaced, but they didn't reprint the pairing sheet. So that was sort of a cute story.
That's great.
And then my other favorite, and this is really a kind of a fabulous story, was the New Orleans Open. I have a very good Thursday, Friday. I shoot something like 69, 69. I'm in about 20th place, 25th place, and I'm paired with Trevino and Watson on Saturday. And Trevino was I believe, the defending champion. This is 1975, right in his heyday. Tom Watson was only on the tour maybe 3 or 4 years. I think he'd won at Dallas the week before. And so our group had the crowd of the day. We had, a majority of the people. And the first hole I hit kind of a skanky drive, and I have a long iron to the green, and I leave it on the fringe, and they're probably hitting middle irons. I make about a 30-footer birdie.
Wow.
Walk off the green, and as we're walking in the next hole, I can hear people kind of muttering, now who's this guy? They have no idea who I am. 21-year-old from San Francisco. They don't know who I am. Next hole, par 5, somewhat reachable. You have to hit a good drive to get around this little corner. I don't hit a good drive. I lay up. I hit a wedge. I don't hit it very good. Fringe, 30 feet. Boom, I make the putt again. We get to the third tee, and I've got the honor because I've started out birdie. And as I'm getting ready, and I should also, part of the preface of the story is that I knew Watson a little bit through college because he played college golf here in the Bay Area. Mm-hmm. And he goes, hey, with Trevino, he says, just walk on the other side of the fairway. Don't even listen to this guy. Just stay away from him. I said, that's bull. I'm going to be Lee Trevino's best buddy, and we're going to walk together, and we're going to talk. We're going to be buddies. Anyway, we get to the third hole. I've got the honor, and I'm getting the club out of my bag, and my caddy and I are talking about the distance. And Trevino says, "Hey, kid, which fringe are you aiming for?" So that was pretty good, and we went on to. I think I shot 71 that day, and Trevino, had some just marvelous shots and these great little chip shots, and he shot about 67, and then I think I ended up about, I don't know, 35th or 40th in that tournament. And, but a great, really, a great experience, obviously.
Obviously. That's phenomenal. What a great story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, sure.
I got to believe that in your 3+ years that you were on the tour, that you came across some pretty special players. Some may have taken you under their wing. Some may have not. But did anyone ever just kind of give you some, instead of ribbing you, did you get any great advice from any of the elders?
Well, it's interesting. I see a little question that popped up from the great Nick Chertok about why golf in San Francisco is so special. And that's part of this answer. But I went to the same high school as Johnny Miller and Ken Venturi, Lincoln High School. Mm-hmm. And Ken Venturi always sort of looked out for me. And I remember this one particular incident. I forget if it was like in Milwaukee or Houston or somewhere. And I'm walking by this patio, and the patio is sort of elevated, and I'm on a cart path, maybe walking from the driving range to the first tee, and I see Venturi at a distance, and he's having lunch with, 4 or 5 people, and I'm not going to bug him. And he got up from the table, walked over the railing, and asked, hey, you need anything? Doing okay? What do you need? And that was a San Franciscan that was, really great. And the other guy, and I'm actually wearing a sweater with an A, and people think it's my logo. I don't have a logo.
I thought it was too.
You have to be a celebrity to have a logo. So, but this is from a golf tournament in memory of George Archer, San Franciscan, who won the Masters. And George, I got to know, and I'm tall, 6'3", 6'4", as he was 6'6". And he and I played some practice rounds together, and he gave me some ideas on, how a tall guy should stay balanced, kind of tweak your knees in closer to each other while you're playing. Don't get bow-legged like you're on a horse. And now, lo and behold, I'm on the foundation board for a foundation that his wife started to help literacy. George was not able to read or write except at about a second grade level, and that was just made public when he passed away. So his wife Donna and I become great friends, and I help her with her golf tournament every year, and they've raised nearly $1 million to help kids in schools and such. So we San Franciscans stuck together, and the city has had a great history and tradition. Bob Rosberg was from the city. His father and my father were doctors together. So it's, as I like to say, for San Francisco, for a big city, it's a very small town, and the golf community is the same way.
Yeah, very tight. Johnny Miller also?
Yeah, absolutely. Johnny, been a great family friend over the years. I had the same golf instructor, John Geertsen Sr. at San Francisco Club, and another cute little story about Miller, that my son played in his Johnny Miller Jr. at Silverado one year, and my son played really well. He shot 73, 74. And the next year we get a phone call. We're home having dinner and watching Jeopardy or something. And it's Johnny Miller on the phone. And he says, John, I'm calling actually to talk to your son. And okay, yeah, and Miller says, Michael, I haven't gotten your entry yet for the tournament. We're holding a spot for you. Well, my son had turned 18, which is past the age limit for the junior golf. And so, but Miller thought enough of our family to think about my son. So, Miller's a good guy.
Yeah. And probably very high on your son's list too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can remember at the President's Cup at Harding, we were doing our radio show there, and I had to come in at 6:30 in the morning, and my parking was all the way out by the main road. I was in the C parking for media, and his horn honks, and it's Miller in his courtesy car. He had the better parking, and he gave me a ride all the way into the media center. So so at 6:30 in the morning, it's nice to have friends.
I'm gonna bring up another question that Nick asked, and Nick, thanks so much for asking the question, and to also Steve, thanks for joining us on the conversation. Let's see if we can get this. You know what, Nick?
I didn't know you'd have smart people on here other than you to be asking questions.
No. I'm not the smart one. I just ask questions.
Should have done this at 9 in the morning.
I never have answers. I only have the questions. Well, you got that glass of wine there, Nick. You got to go /Q. I think is yes.
I can actually see the question.
You can see the question. Well, and it's a great question to ask as well, which I will read for everybody who's listening, and that how would you differentiate between instruction in the 90s versus now? We'll take that one first.
Yeah, I would say the obvious thing is that you don't have the statistics and the all the numbers to, let's say, worry about or to be concerned with, and it was probably more about looking at ball flight and body movements, and I taught. I've taught back to when video, we did reel-to-reel tape. If you remember, you've probably seen pictures of that. And
I was there.
I've taught, back into the early 70s with video. And I would say that, some people should have seen their swings and others didn't. And I think it really created an importance to be a good communicator, to be able to tell somebody, how here's your flight of your ball, here's your tendency. Now let's walk you through this, and let me hold the club here and kind of walk you through this, and really going that direction. And in a period of a lesson, I may have told somebody something, the same thing, but maybe told them 3 or 4 ways. And so I like the old style of teaching personally. I've never gotten completely wrapped around, TrackMan and what you can do with it. And I think for a lot of average people, it's probably a little bit too complicated. I'm sure there's certain things that they can really get. And I've seen some things from, like Zepp Golf, just found a thing in the routing of my backswing that helped me. And I wouldn't have necessarily found that, by just looking at video. So I think just that you had to communicate me a little bit better and explain it rather than saying, hey, here's a number. But I think golf's more of a feel thing than a number thing.
Yeah. Do you think that golfers on the pro level, do you think that they are significantly? Ooh, this is a loaded question. I hate to do this. Are they significantly better golfers than they were in the 60s and 70s because of all the additional training, the better body styles, all the electronics to pick up nuances?
Well, I think there's, it's a long equation to why there's probably more better players today. The players aren't dramatically better at the top, but you have a broader base. Look at the first 5 or 6 winners on the PGA Tour this fall. 5 or 6 names that we haven't heard a lot about, but the depth of the good players has gotten a lot better, and I think a lot of it is from fitness, club fitting, the stability that they have in their bodies, and probably learning consistency. The ball and the distance is another part of the equation. Learning the bounce on the wedges, changing the bounce as they move from West Coast to East Coast with, going from harder clay base to, a softer sandy soil. So, you got to be really smart to do all these things. And yeah, learning, a consistent motion in your swing because you watched it on video or gone through some sort of a gym apparatus that shows you where you need to be. All those things make for a really strong equation for better play.
And what about amateur play? Do you think amateur play is significantly different than it was at those times because of all the equipment?
It doesn't look much different to me than it did. I think that, one of the jokes that they can hit it further in the trees now because of the driver. And there's a golf course where I'm working on some redesign work with that. There's a street near this tee, and it didn't used to be as big an issue years ago, but now players can hit it higher and over the fence more easily and break windows in houses. So we're looking at redesigning a golf hole to kind of mitigate that. So it's interesting, but I think the average player hasn't really improved that much, and I think that a lot of them really should take more lessons and learn their swing, because I see some pretty bad habits out there amongst average players, not understanding rhythm and tempo, which I'm sort of a big believer in. So, I think good lessons, it's a better $300 than a new driver. So
absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. And get fitted for clubs instead of just buying a driver, right?
Sure.
Absolutely. Hey, there, if you'll see on the screen, if you're watching us live right now, that it says call in. Nick, call in. You have so many questions. I want you to ask them. There we go. Let's get Nick in on here. And let him ask you a couple of questions. I love the idea of doing this.
Nick, this is only a 3-hour podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Come on, Nick. Where are you? He's in his car. You're not driving, are you?
Of course.
Pull over right now.
Well, I'm in a parking lot. I'm
okay, good.
In the Bay Area, so I'm not actually moving.
Well, you better not be. But welcome to the show, buddy. How are you?
I'm great, guys. Good to see you guys together. I'm good friends with both.
Hey, Nick, we're overdue to have lunch with my son Michael and you and I.
I know. Yeah, I was just out at Olympic.
Okay, now I'm hurt.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm interrupting. Sorry, I'm hurt that you guys are like going out without me, and I'm sitting here listening to this. All right, Nick, you had a couple questions. What would you like to ask?
Well, I always like to ask about the state of instruction and why average golfers seem to just plateau. So I was going to ask John why he thought so few people actually seek out instruction. It's about 10%, maybe 12%.
Well, I think probably it's like any other activity. I'm fair at the computer, and I probably am too proud to call an expert and have him come in and try to show me, how to use my computer better. I mentioned at the beginning, I'm an avid fisherman. There's some fishing techniques that I wish I was better at, and I'm probably too proud or too shy to call an expert and say, hey, can I pay you $100 and you come show me how to catch halibut? I just kind of go do it. And I think that golfers are probably that way, where it's probably somewhat a thing of budget. They have X number of dollars that they commit to it, and to commit another, $500 a year to taking lessons, it's probably just not of interest to them.
I think that from my perspective on that is that people are so busy today that lessons also requires practice. And I think so many golfers, so many amateur golfers, they get their practice just before their round of golf, that it's all one day where they go out, they hit a bucket of balls, that's their practice, and then they go out and play. Thoughts? John?
I agree, very much so. And I would, talk to my students to, if I was doing a series of 4 lessons, I would tell them exactly that. When you come back, this isn't practice time. This is to, right. If I told you 4 things last time, I want to see which 2 you solved and which 2 we got to focus on. So right. I would say, hey, come back in 2 or 3 weeks. And if you don't have time to practice, let's reschedule and go that direction. So I completely agree. They would come back and I've written on this in the past where, there's a lot of personality traits, like, somebody who's a type A, who's an avid golfer, they rush from, their car to the first tee. And that's the last time that they've seen a golf club since the last time they played. Right. And so, they don't put a lot of effort into it, and they're not going to get much better.
Right. Hey, Nick, you're making me so nervous. I'm gonna get you off of the video here so you can try. Okay. I can see that you're moving. Yeah, but it's great to see you, buddy.
You too,
thanks for coming on, and thank you for your continued support for all this time.
And nice job with what you're doing, Nick. Nice going.
Right on.
And Rick, if you've got a question too, if you'd like to come on and ask John a question, I'm more than happy to have you join us for that. I the whole idea of people not practicing, what cracks me up about that is then they get out on the course and they've been watching golf on TV. And so they have a bad shot. They think, oh yeah, well, I did that because I lifted my head. Oh yeah, right. My hips were too. They have all these excuses, they have all these reasons why they're not playing well with every shot. And then they complain about inconsistency.
Yeah, I completely agree. And like you said, the lifting your head, I'm a big believer that is a kind of an old wives' tale that really doesn't cause issues. When they come up and top the ball, it's probably more that, that they lifted their knees up and straightened up their whole body rather than just the head. Because if you look at my head right now, it's not affecting what my arms are doing at all. So, I think that they, their buddy told them something or they read something somewhere and they misconstrued. So, but I think what you need to do is you need to find that each golfer, I think, has a couple of inherent habits that are bad. I've got a couple in my own swing, and I've identified those over the years. So if I have had a layoff, and like with these couple of surgeries I've had, that when I come back to playing, that I'm thinking about, okay, let's deal with issue number 1, let's deal with issue number 2, and then kind of work through those things, rather than trying to reevaluate the whole wheel on just looking at which spokes are bad.
Yep. Well, this is great. Thank you very much for your time and for joining us. And I hope that we can get you back on again, and maybe even get you off of an AOL email address at some point. I'm gonna come over and give you some computer lessons.
Well, like I said, I'm probably too crazy to, I've got another email account, but I look at it that, most of my connections know my AOL address, and it's right. Like, I know people that send me a thing that says, okay, I'm switching over to Gmail, and then, I forget to make a note of their new Gmail account. Now I can't find them. So I look at it that way. So, but AOL's been acting slow lately, so I may start converting. So I may call you for a lesson.
Not a problem, as long as we can reciprocate.
All right, very good.
John, thank you so much for being on, and best of luck with continued success with Hooked on Golf on the radio here in the San Francisco area. And again, I really hope we can get you back on the show because this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I appreciate you introducing me to Blab. It's very intriguing, and I don't know, I'll look at it down the road. So it's very, very interesting stuff.
I'm in.
Okay, very good.
All right. Thanks so much.
All right.